Ladies and gentlemen, as we look across the globe, we cannot deny what is unfolding before our very eyes. There is a surge, a movement, a spiritual tide that is sweeping across continents, and it is not silent. It is bold, it is unashamed, and it is gathering momentum in places that once resisted it. Islam, without question, is the fastest growing religion in the world today. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but by divine allowance and human response. We are living in a time where the landscape of faith is shifting dramatically, and to ignore it is to misunderstand the times we've been called to live in. People everywhere are searching. They are looking for meaning, for identity, for a place to belong. In a world where institutions are collapsing, where family structures are eroding, and where the moral compass is spinning wildly, the human soul longs for a solid foundation. And Islam, in its discipline, in its structure, and in its clear-cut commandments, offers something the modern soul finds increasingly rare: certainty. The call to pray 5 times a day, the obligation to fast, the strictness of its moral code, these are not seen as burdens to the adherent, but anchors in a world adrift. It is not just the rituals that draw people in, it is the community. In the Western world, where individualism has isolated people and broken homes are more common than whole ones, Islam presents a tightly knit society, a brotherhood, a global family that reaches from Cairo to Chicago, from Jakarta to Johannesburg. There is a power in that belonging, and for the person weary of walking alone, it feels like coming home. Mosques are full, homes are filled with the sound of shared meals, shared prayers, and a shared mission. The lonely find friendship, the aimless find direction, and let us not ignore the role of conviction. Muslims, many of them, are deeply convinced of the truth they hold. They are not lukewarm. They do not casually attend to matters of faith. They believe that what they possess is not one way, but the way. They are willing to defend it, live it, and in many cases die for it. In a world of shallow belief, such boldness is magnetic. When you stand for something unflinchingly, even those who disagree will stop and watch. The numbers are not merely the result of population growth, though demographics certainly play a role. Conversion rates are increasing, and not just among the poor or uneducated. Highly educated men and women, former atheists, ex-Christians, former agnostics, they are stepping into the fold of Islam not out of compulsion, but out of conviction. They hear the Quran. They witness the submission, they observe the discipline, and they ask themselves why they are chasing pleasures that never satisfy, when here is a faith that demands everything and gives back identity, purpose, and structure. And yet, we must see beyond the numbers. We must see what God is allowing, what history is revealing, and what prophecy has long foretold. The rise of Islam is not separate from the spiritual story unfolding on this earth. It is part of it, a significant part. It is not a sideshow. It is a central chapter. The God who reigns over heaven and earth is not unaware. The scriptures have spoken of times like these where nations rise, where beliefs clash, and where the name of the Lord must be lifted high in the midst of it all. Islam spreads in cities, in universities, in prisons, and in media. The question is not only why is it growing, but what does this mean for those who follow Christ? It is a wake-up call, a moment to look in the mirror. Are we living with that kind of commitment, that kind of prayerfulness, that kind of moral clarity? The growth of Islam is not merely a demographic trend, it is a spiritual signpost. It challenges us to ask, what are we offering the world that is better? What truth do we carry? What love are we living? Because the world is hungry, the world is thirsty, and wherever it sees fire, it will come running. In a world unraveling at the seams, people are desperately searching for something solid, something they can hold on to when everything else is slipping through their fingers. The modern age has ushered in rapid technological advancement, unparalleled freedom, and limitless access to knowledge, but with it has come an increase in moral confusion, existential anxiety, and a deepening spiritual vacuum. In such a climate, Islam speaks with clarity. It offers a structure that isn't swayed by trends, a discipline that doesn't waver with emotions, and a moral certainty that anchors the soul when the world feels like it's drifting further into chaos. This is one of the most compelling reasons why Islam is growing so rapidly. It presents a complete framework for life, a system where the sacred is not confined to one day a week, but infused into every moment of every day. When people encounter the structure of Islam, many find themselves captivated by its consistency. The 5 pillars are not suggestions or abstract concepts, they are commands: prayer, fasting, charity, testimony of faith, and pilgrimage. They define daily life not as interruptions, but as foundations. These acts aren't optional spiritual expressions, but essential duties that regulate the rhythm of life. In a time when so many are overwhelmed by decision fatigue and moral gray zones, Islam offers a straight path. The lines are clear. The expectations are non-negotiable. For someone worn out by relativism, that kind of clarity feels like peace. It removes the guesswork, it simplifies the struggle, and it provides a routine that binds the heart to a higher purpose. Discipline is at the heart of Islamic life. Waking before dawn to pray, abstaining from food and drink during daylight hours for an entire month, memorizing long passages of Scripture, guarding one's eyes, words, and deeds. These are not casual habits. They require effort, intention, and control, and yet they produce a remarkable effect on the individual. They instill self-mastery, foster humility, and direct the believer's focus away from worldly distractions towards something transcendent. In contrast to the unending push for personal gratification seen in much of the modern world, Islam calls for submission. Not submission to desire, not submission to self, but submission to God. And that call resonates deeply with those tired of the emptiness that comes from chasing temporary pleasure. The moral certainty Islam offers is equally magnetic. It does not present morality as subjective or evolving, but as defined and unchanging. Right is right, wrong is wrong. The commands of God are not to be debated, revised, or diluted. They are to be obeyed. For those navigating a culture where values shift by the day and truth is often treated as a matter of opinion, this uncompromising clarity is incredibly attractive. Like, it draws in people who are weary of ambiguity and who long for a moral compass that doesn't spin with public opinion. The commands concerning modesty, justice, charity, family, and personal conduct offer a code that speaks to every area of life and does so without apology. There is comfort in boundaries. There is strength in knowing where the line is drawn. This combination of structure, discipline, and certainty becomes even more powerful when contrasted with the spiritual offerings of many modern societies. In places where faith has been reduced to vague spirituality, or where religious practice has been watered down to little more than occasional attendance and positive thinking, Islam's bold demands stand out. They seem intense to outsiders, perhaps even extreme, but to those who are truly searching, that intensity is exactly what they are looking for. It signals seriousness. It tells them that this faith is not a hobby or a part-time belief system. It is a way of life. And for many, especially in a time of crisis, uncertainty, or transition, that kind of all-encompassing commitment is not a deterrent. It's the very thing their heart has been craving. In a time when individualism dominates and social isolation is becoming the norm, people are longing for meaningful relationships, for a sense of connection, for a community that stands by them not just in celebration, but in struggle. Islam offers exactly that. It doesn't just provide a belief system, it provides a family. Whether one is in a bustling metropolis or a remote village, the moment a person embraces Islam, they are no longer alone. They are immediately woven into a global brotherhood and sisterhood that transcends nationality, language, and race. This deep sense of belonging draws people in because it gives them something they may have never truly experienced: a spiritual home. In many parts of the world, especially in the West, people feel more disconnected than ever. Despite being surrounded by crowds, they walk alone. Despite having social media accounts filled with followers, they feel unseen. Despite the noise of the modern world, their hearts often remain silent and unheard. Islam, on the other hand, places high importance on community. The collective acts of worship, the shared meals during Ramadan, the greetings of peace exchanged between strangers. These are not mere rituals. They are constant reminders that no one is meant to walk through life in isolation. Every believer is part of a body, and when one part rejoices, the rest celebrates. And when one part suffers, the rest comes to its aid. There's something profoundly attractive about entering a mosque anywhere in the world and hearing the same words, witnessing the same prayer movements, and feeling the same reverence. A convert in London can travel to Kuala Lumpur and find immediate acceptance among Muslims who don't share their culture, language, or background. There is an immediate bond forged not by blood, but by faith. This unity is not artificial. It is built into the fabric of Islam itself. The very design of prayer, with worshipers standing shoulder to shoulder in perfect rows, symbolizes the equality and unity of believers before their Creator. The wealthy stand beside the poor, the educated beside the uneducated, the old beside the young. Islam erases the lines that divide and replaces them with a shared identity that goes deeper than surface labels. The sense of accountability within this community is also a powerful force. In a world that often encourages people to do whatever pleases them, Islam's communal structure encourages believers to remind one another of truth, to lift each other up in righteousness, and to gently correct when someone strays. This mutual responsibility cultivates a climate of spiritual growth and moral awareness. For many, especially those who come from fractured families or broken homes, this support system becomes a lifeline. They no longer have to face their struggles alone. They no longer have to figure out their purpose without guidance. Within the Islamic community, they find mentors, friends, spiritual leaders, and companions who are sincerely invested in their well-being. And then there is the emotional warmth that is often absent in secular societies. In many Islamic cultures, hospitality is not just a cultural trait, it is a religious duty. Guests are treated like family. Strangers are welcomed with honor. Elders are respected, and children are nurtured. These aren't just customs, they're commandments. When someone enters Islam, they often testify that for the first time they feel truly seen and valued, not for what they have, not for how they look, but simply because they are a fellow servant of God. That kind of love is rare in a society driven by competition, comparison, and consumer. The strength of Islamic brotherhood and sisterhood also provides a sense of security. In times of crisis, in moments of grief, during financial hardship or emotional turmoil, the community steps in. It's not uncommon for a new Muslim to receive offers of help, advice, and companionship from people they've just met. This generosity and concern are not sporadic. They are expected, encouraged, and built into the life of the believer. Charity is not merely a donation. It is a sacred trust, caring for the poor, visiting the sick, comforting the distressed. These acts are not praised for being extraordinary, but practiced as ordinary expressions of faith. One of the most striking reasons behind the rapid growth of Islam in the world today is the depth of conviction displayed by many of its followers. In an era where religious commitment is often treated casually or with indifference, the seriousness and discipline of practicing Muslims stand out as a powerful testimony. People are not only drawn to ideas, they are drawn to people who genuinely believe in those ideas. They are captivated by lives that reflect consistency, purpose, and courage. When someone sees a person living out their beliefs with sincerity and boldness, it leaves an impression that arguments and debates alone cannot make. In a world craving authenticity, the committed Muslim becomes a living message that faith can be more than tradition. It can be transformation. It's not just the rituals that speak, it's the way Muslims orient their entire lives around their beliefs. Prayer is not relegated to convenience, it is prioritized. Even in the midst of work, travel, or hardship 5 times a day, Muslims pause to reconnect with their Creator. This level of devotion speaks louder than words. It demonstrates that God is not an afterthought, not a weekend hobby, but the very center of their existence. This kind of consistency challenges observers, especially those who may have grown up in faith traditions where religious observance was shallow, sporadic, or merely symbolic. They begin to ask themselves why others are willing to give so much, commit so deeply, and live so fully for something they themselves have only treated casually. There is also a boldness to Muslim identity that is rare in modern times. While many shy away from being labeled religious out of fear of being judged, mocked, or misunderstood, many Muslims wear their faith publicly and proudly. Their dress, their speech, their customs all proclaim what they believe even before a word is spoken. This visible faith serves as a beacon to those who are tired of living in spiritual secrecy. It encourages them to imagine a life where belief is not hidden but honored. The hijab, the beard, the refusal to compromise on dietary laws or prayer schedules, these are not just personal choices. They are public declarations of loyalty to God. And that kind of visible faith has a magnetism all its own. What further strengthens this conviction is the unity of belief among Muslims worldwide. There is one book, one direction of prayer, one declaration of faith. This simplicity and universality reinforce confidence. Unlike fragmented religious groups that argue endlessly over doctrine or splinter into countless denominations, Islam's core beliefs remain unified and consistent across borders and cultures. This uniformity creates a spiritual confidence that is both attractive and persuasive. It reassures the seeker that what they're stepping into is not man-made confusion, but divine clarity. Even in the face of hardship, persecution, or social stigma, many Muslims remain firm in their commitment. Stories abound of those who lose jobs, friends, or even family after embracing Islam, yet refuse to abandon their path. Their resolve inspires admiration. Observers begin to wonder what kind of truth could be worth such sacrifice. In a time when convenience often outweighs conviction and comfort takes priority over truth, the willingness of Muslims to suffer for their faith sends a message that their belief is not based on emotion or cultural pressure, but on real personal conviction. This kind of faith is not only contagious, it's confrontational. It challenges the complacent. It raises questions in the hearts of those who have never considered what it really means to live for something greater than themselves. It exposes the gap between knowing about truth and living it. It forces the lukewarm to take a second look at their own commitments and to wonder what it would be like to live a life fully aligned with what they claim to believe. In this way, the passion and dedication of Muslims don't just grow Islam, they awaken spiritual hunger in those who witness it.